Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. And today we have a special premiered edition as I am at a conference this week. So I have selected out just the best articles. It'll be a little bit of a shorter show today. And we're going to go ahead and get this guy out as a premiere on schedule. Next week, we should go back to normal. And then the week after that starts a few weeks of craziness. And I have no earthly idea what we're going to see at that point in time. So just kind of stay with me here. If you want to help support the channel, have a look over the website at switchedtolinux.com/support. And you can see there we have some affiliates that we've trusted over the years. We have ways to help support us on Locals, Patreon, and Subscribestar. You can find the details over there at switchedtolinux.com/support. And we are going to dive right on in with starting with what the U.S. airlines industries have been doing. And they have effectively been collecting a whole bunch of consumer data and then turning around, of course, and selling it to the government, probably, obviously, among other people. I think there are many of these articles, they just spin things as bad. Oh, the government's doing it. And actually, everybody's doing it. I mean, don't be mad just at the government. They're not the only ones doing this. But this is very much like when Allstate created their data broker company and then sold it to the likes of your Gas Buddy and Life 360 and all these other ones that turned around and sold that data over to, I think, LexisNexis, who then sold all of that, GPS and gyroscopic and other personal information back to your insurance companies, so they could still track what we're doing without having that creepy black box in our car. Yeah, that was the whole plan. They created a data broker company, they collected the specific data, and then they sold it to the people they wanted to so that they could really, truly gain data analyzing your driving habits. Well, the airline industry apparently has been doing something very similar. At least we're not the ones flying the planes, right? But a whole group of airlines have created this data broker company called Airlines Reporting Corporation, and it is a giant conglomerate of like every major airline and some minor ones as well. And among everyone else they've been selling it to, they have been selling the flight data to the Department of Homeland Security. Now, remember, there were some bills going around, floating around to say, hey, your government's not allowed to buy information from data brokers. But as far as I can tell, those bills have either dead on arrival or they are just locked in committee. I have not heard anything about those bills for a long time. Maybe we need to start pushing for more of these rules to come back in. But in the meantime, the government still slops up as much data as possible from this. So the information has names, flights, itineraries, and financial data. It also covers flights booked via U.S. travel agencies. Now, the one article, I think Level 1 Tech covered this this week, and I believe they said this really only collected if you were going from there. I didn't see that in this particular article. Maybe they read a different article. I think 404 Media was the first to cover that. So ARC is owned and operated by 8 major U.S. airlines and is unique in being the only financial intermediary between the airline industry and U.S. travel agencies. So effectively, all the travel agency data gets into this database. The question is, does the data get in there if you buy directly from the airlines? So price shopping definitely gets you into there. If you're buying it just directly from the airlines, is it? I don't know. There is, however, the contract with ICE provides some view into the data obligations from travel agencies. They actually state, according to their contract with ICE, travel data must be updated daily. And they must submit ticket sales and funds for over 240 airlines worldwide to the ARC. This process enables ARC's TIP, an essential intelligence tool integrated into HSI's Intel's investigation mission. So the contracts with the government stipulate, hey, we will have this giant lucrative contract with you, but you have to agree to update that database for us daily. Yeah, thanks. Wonderful. All right, talking about more interesting things rooting themselves in the problem of government and data collection. This boils back to the healthcare exchanges under Obamacare. And under Obamacare, everybody, of course, has to sign in for this wonderful insurance. It isn't so wonderful. We're going to have this affordable care, folks. And, of course, once everybody is forced to have health insurance, wouldn't you know it, the health insurance costs went up. That's what happened with Obamacare. But what's even worse is that 4 different states are caught sharing very personal data with big tech companies, very personal medical data with big tech companies. And those that didn't, most of them actually shared advertising type tracking data as well, with the only exception, curiously, being Washington, D.C. Very interesting. So this boils down to when Obamacare started out, each state had the option to run their own healthcare insurance website, which collected all of your data and then fed this into all those data brokers, and then you would get your, extremely high climbing insurance rates. So the state-run healthcare websites around the country, meant to provide simple way to shop for insurance, have been quietly sending visitors sensitive health information to Google and social media companies. The data, including prescription drug names and dosage, was sent by web trackers on the state exchanges set up under the Affordable Care Act to help Americans purchase health coverage. I didn't need help. Once the government got involved, in fact, it got super expensive. All right. So the markup in CalMatters audited the websites of all 19 states that independently operate their own online health exchange. While most of the sites contain advertising trackers of some kind, the markup in CalMatters found 4 states that exposed visitors' sensitive health information. When visitors start typing, it suggests specific medications, including antidepressants, birth control, and hormone therapies. And as visitors answer the questions, their responses were sent to LinkedIn and Snapchat. So here's actually the page on the website. And this is the data tracker. And look, here's the tracker information is being sent. Oh, you're on 20 milligrams of fluoxetine. Oh, wonderful. How glorious. All right, so what they found is on Maine's exchange, they sent information on drug prescriptions and dosages to Google through Google Analytics. Isn't that wonderful? So Rhode Island exchange sent prescription information and doctors' names to Google. And I thought we had that one, but I don't see it on here. Maybe it's Nevada. I don't know. Nevada uses trackers to help target marketing at uninsured residents. So you're collecting a bunch of data on your insured residents to target your uninsured residents. That makes a lot of sense, but So it doesn't surprise me that organizations that have these massive tech stacks that rely on third-party resources don't have a full understanding of what the configuration is, what the data flows are, and then once they go to somebody, what the data is being used for, Haskell said. It's something that needs to be addressed. And I've said this before. We talked about this, in fact, in the weekly news roundup last week when the UK is telling these agencies, hey, you do the pregnancy tracking or the period monitoring times for the women, because all these companies are collecting all of this evil data. Well, the health agency is just going to hire another agency, and the other agency is just going to be putting the same trackers in there. It's not going to be any different because these people don't understand what's going on. They don't understand how apps work. To get most of the functionality of these apps, you have to include the trackers of some form or another. I look at Google Play services. So many apps require Google Play services. Could they make them without it? In theory, yes, depending on what you're trying to do. It's kind of like maybe collecting tax data. If you are a big company and you're using WooCommerce, it is insane to collect all the taxes in the way you need to unless you're installing their, Jetpack. If you install the WordPress Jetpack system for WooCommerce, then you're getting a super simple setup to collect all the tax around the world, but the cost is massive amounts of yours and your customers' data is going back to the company. And that's the same thing that's going to happen. So even these states that are running these particular exchanges, they are still giving up way more information. Here's the overall results. California had 63 advertising trackers, and they were sending sensitive information out, including pregnancy, like status. Are you pregnant? Are you blind? Are you disabled? What's your race? What's your gender? Were you a victim of domestic abuse? Is being sent to these big companies. And the name of doctors. Nevada is medication names and dosages. Massachusetts is your status. Maine, medication names, doses, hospitals, doctors. Rhode Island has similar things. And then you can see all these trackers in here as well. Curiously, the only one there is Washington, D.C. at 0. Pennsylvania, no information being sent out to them, but they do have 14 different advertising trackers. How wonderful. There's a lot more information out here. Here's Health Source Rhode Island, and this is where the medical provider, here's your doctor's name, and you can see everything else that's in here as well. So there's just a lot of data being sent back and forth. That's wonderful. And into the tech dirt, this was an interesting one. If you remember those really funny No Kings protests that happened, and then up in Minneapolis, there was a dude that was going around dressed as a police officer and engaging in unpolice-like conduct with politicians. Actually, went around and was actually targeting politicians. Well, they grabbed a bunch of that politicians' data from the data brokers. Isn't that neat? It's actually in the lawsuit. So fast forward this week, the court documents revealed the killer of Minnesota Representative Melissa Hortman and husband Mark Hortman used data broker information to obtain their home addresses. So the accused Minneapolis assassin allegedly used data brokers as a key part of his plot to track down and the Democratic lawmakers. Congress doesn't need any more proof that people are being killed based on the data for sale to anyone with a credit card. Every single American's safety is at risk until Congress cracks down this sleazy industry. And remember, the reason it is illegal to get somebody's rental history, video rental history, when you used to go to the video store and rent movies, was when a congressman's adult video content leaked out of a Blockbuster type store. And as soon as that happened, it is illegal. So maybe, just maybe, we'll actually pass some laws now that the data brokers are being used. Of course, they'll just pass laws making it illegal to target them, not everyone else. So, who knows what's going to happen there. But they do make it clear here, to be clear, both the lawmakers' addresses were available on the website, and the information is already widely available. Home addresses of prominent lawmakers are generally widely available through public records. But that being said, the killer did obtain information through a dozen different names and addresses on the websites to collect their data from a massive international web of barely regulated data brokers. So there's zero meaningful oversight in the sector. Generally, data brokers and companies try to hide behind the claims they anonymize the data, but it is a meaningless term because study after study has shown that users of such data sets can be easily identified with just a little extra information and a few seconds of work. That's interesting. So be careful of that. Now, AI is, of course, making things worse. And in this case, AI is now creating synthetic fraud document IDs. So with collecting all the information they can, now people are saying, hey, AI, you know all this information about such and such a person. Now, AI, I please implore you to create me a fake ID of that person. And now the AI is able to spit out the fake IDs. So what happened is a dramatic spike in synthetic ID fraud, surged 378%. In Europe, North America, 311%, in the MENA region, 258%. Now, this is certainly a problem. Traditional forgery is on the decline, of course, because why? Why would you go through that when the AI can spit it out for you? So this already sharply declined, 82% in Africa, 50% in North America, with Europe actually increased by 33% for some reason. Now, of course, the question becomes, now that all these fake IDs can be created, well, guess what? Now we need to move ahead with WorldCoin's idea of verifying who everyone is. So we expect companies like OpenAI to strengthen safeguards. Of course, OpenAI started this whole mess. Now the OpenAI founder wants to solve the problem he created with a much more dystopian means of doing it. We expect companies like OpenAI to strengthen safeguards and control the use of its programs to generate passports, IDs, and other personal documents. The problem is there's already easy ways to bypass all these. However, what they say down here, and what leads me to saying, hey, they're going to look at this WorldCoin stuff, for individuals and organizations trying to protect themselves relying solely on conventional know your customer protocols, that's KYC, may no longer be enough. We can't rely on the traditional know your customer protocols. Businesses are advised to use identity management software and multi-layered verification systems for stronger protection. You know, like WorldCoin. Thank you, AI, for unleashing another way that you have caused scammers to profit while we cannot properly use AI in many other places across our world. Definitely an interesting approach. Isn't that interesting? No, I don't really want to give you my email. Sorry. And, of course, we were talking about AI, and now that a couple different places around the country or around the world are getting bombed, oh, look at this. OpenAI wins a $2 million contract for the U.S. military for, quote, warfighting. Didn't we all say we weren't going to do that? Interesting. Wonderful. U.S. Department of Defense awarded OpenAI $200 million contract to put generative artificial intelligence to work in the U.S. military. Now, this is not the large language models. This isn't ChatGPT. This is the generative. This is that next phase. Actually, this is the third phase up. This is kind of the dangerous phase. This is the phase where the thing starts to be like, hey, I really think you should do this. Even though they say, well, everything's got to have a human oversight. Well, the problem is with human oversight is in the world of AI, combined with the laziness of people, human oversight generally means a rubber stamp. I don't want to dig into that. I mean, people can't be trusted to use AI to write a blog post and actually read it before publishing it online. You want AI to be involved in generative AI and wartime decisions. Now, what they're actually saying here is the company plans on how AI can vastly improve administrative options, such as how service members get health care and also cyber defenses. So it's all about the health care, the administrative end, and also cyber defenses. Cyber defenses, security missions, blowing up the enemy. It's security. We're blowing up the enemy. We got to strike him before he strikes us. Isn't that the whole thing we were told? We got to fight them on their turf so they don't have to fight on our turf. Oh, so OpenAI is opening up Skynet on the world. Should we start placing our bets now? How long before robotic terminators are roaming the city streets? Keeping the peace, security missions. That happened in RoboCop too, if I'm recalling, right? They had all these mechs down there on the streets doing all these security missions. It was effectively turned into a dystopian nightmare where everybody walking down the street had to be stopped by a giant robot with a minigun pointed at your chest. Identify yourself. Identify yourself. Yeah, I don't know about this. So, of course, they did mention here, big tech companies are increasingly pitching their tools to U.S. military, among them Meta, and Palantir. We've already talked about. Let's merge all these databases and make it way easier for the government to reduce their bureaucracy. Well, it's okay. You can always just loll off in front of the TV and forget life exists. So that's where we're going next. That's right. Smart TV owners face constant conflict between privacy and advertiser demands. I don't face any of that. I don't have a smart TV. No interest in getting one. So this is really a post kind of going back and forth between the interplay between the smart TV creators and the people who own it all. So software providers Software providers for budget and premium TV are honing their ad skills, which requires advancing their ability to collect user data. This is creating an inherent conflict within the industry. So, of course, people don't want to see as many ads, and that's kind of becoming clear. But the TV manufacturers really want to make revenue after the sale of the television itself. You know, it's not enough to make money just on the TV. Now you got to make money on the TV every single time it's turned on by doing massive amounts of data collection. Unfortunately, this starts to irk your customers. Now, I'll get irked to the point where I just won't get one. And, I don't really care for a lot of the latest stuff anyway. I just roam through and find DVDs and things at thrift shops, or maybe if it's one I really want, I'll actually buy it new on like Amazon or somewhere I can still find DVDs for sale. Becoming harder to find, but we are actually seeing a return. More people are getting back into DVDs because of the advertising being constantly pushed at us. And at least when you put a DVD in a DVD player and watch it, you might get a few ads and previews at the start of the DVD. But then once your movie starts, you're golden. Of course, until Roku actually decides to execute on the patent it holds to insert ads into what's going through your HDMI input line. They're not doing that yet, but they do hold the patent for it. So if you got a Roku, you might actually see ads interjected on your DVD player ads too, because Roku's trying to work on that. So the battle here is going back and forth. Nakano acknowledged the opposing needs of advertisers and smart TV users who are calling for a reasonable amount of data privacy. No, I'm calling for 100%. I'm saying your television should not be spying on you. But what are they doing? They're putting in cameras. They're putting in microphones. They're trying to determine who's in the room. They're utilizing that data, and they're getting back all of the data. They're feeding that into their algorithms. They're trying to see what in the world is going on. And then what is going on here is they're going to then collect all this data, and then if you're doing WebOS, now they're going to use psychological data profiling on you and target you based on what they think you are on the psychological level rather than a demographic level. We've talked about that in the past. Do you want your data sold out there and everyone to know exactly what you've been watching? The answer is generally no, the Samsung executive said, yet advertisers want the data. They want to know exactly what you ate for breakfast. So the Samsung executive out here is saying, hey, the smart TV owners want every bit of data they can. They want to know exactly what you're watching. They want to know exactly what you're eating. They want to know exactly what you're saying. They want to know if you're standing there in front of the TV when the ads are playing. But the people generally don't want all that kind of stuff. Of course, some of us are like, well, I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide, man. Oh, you do. Of course, this gets into which smart TV, if you're forced to get a smart TV, which one do you get? I'll throw out this recommendation. If you need a smart TV, the two I would avoid, WebOS and Roku. Those are the two I would avoid. WebOS, because they are doing a lot of weird stuff with psychological targeting. That's creepy. That's beyond creepy. Roku, because they hold those dangerous patents to interfere your HDMI signal inputs. Although they have said right now they're not using that, but it is a possibility. And so these are factors that we have. So the ability for streaming OSs to generate revenue is increasingly important to TV and streaming hardware makers such as Samsung, Amazon, Roku, Vizio, and Walmart, which struggle with low margins in growing unit sales and seek more reliable growth from software's ability to advertise and track users. And then I guess this is a challenge, though, although people are buying smart TVs more often now because they don't have a long life. And so it's not uncommon these days for you to buy a TV that really goes bad in a matter of a few years. Whereas, the TV I got when I was in 7th grade, I believe my mother still has it. Last time I saw, I think she still has that TV and it still works perfectly fine. Still the same box. They were reliable back then. But of course, they have to make in planned obsolescence. They have to make them with cheap crap. You got to keep on buying more and more and more of them. And then, of course, now they want continuing data as well. Catherine Pond, Vizio's Group VP of Platform Content Partnerships, noted during the panel that once someone buys a TV, OS operators are not really in competition anymore. However, OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, are still trying to ensure that customers use their OSs so viewers are engaged for ads and potentially buy more devices from that brand. So whatever brand you buy, if you have a good experience, you tend to buy that again. That's kind of what they're getting at. As TVs progress towards a battle of data, ads, and tracking over hardware sales, the panel advancements, TV brands are largely invested in driving operating systems that can serve advertisers' needs. And that's what's behind WebOS with what we've talked about. Speaking, though, of ads crammed in weird spots, now if you're a WhatsApp user, now ads are getting in there. And the question is, can we trust these ads? Of course, advertisements are generally served by what the company knows about you. And I don't really particularly believe the company's answer here to the privacy question, but let's see what's going on. So after years of rumors, worries, and denials has finally happened, WhatsApp is officially getting ads. As advertised by them, on Monday, June 16th, Meta announced it will be rolling out the feature over the next few months. So over the next few months, if you're a WhatsApp user, you are going to start getting ads. Now, they're not putting the ads intermixed inside of your conversations. They actually say here that your messages, they say their messages are staying private because it's on a different tab. Don't worry, we're not collecting your information. The ads are shown on a different tab. Inside your app, there's a bunch of ad tabs. One of them is like the groups you're in. One is like your private conversations. Don't worry. The ads are shown in a different tab. Your messages are safe. Guys, I have oceanfront property in Montana to sell you. Would you like it? It's awesome, man. Awesome. So the chief technology officer at NordVPN says that your messages may not stay as private as you think. So what they're trying to do here, now they're putting in this new tab here, the Updates tab, which the company says 1.5 billion daily users, including both channels and statuses. Channels are a list of dedicated interest groups you can join, while the latter replicates stories feature from Instagram. Oh, wonderful. Both channels and statuses are going to get the ad feature. So channels and statuses will have the ad. So look at this. Ooh, giant ad. Yeah, look at that. Here's channel subscriptions. Here's your promoted channels. They say the promoted channels feature will soon start to recommend new sponsored channels based on your interests. How do they know your interests? Oh, all that other data tracking. WhatsApp is promising that these new features will have been built with users' privacy in mind. Therefore, all personal messages, calls, and statuses are set to remain end-to-end encrypted, meaning that not even the provider has access to sensitive information. To show ads in the status or channels you might care about, we'll use limited information like your country, city, language, the channels you're following, and how you interact with the ads you see. You see, this is the same country that was creating a local host server inside of the app in order to get around Android and iOS protections of not sharing data between different resources, getting out of their sandboxes. This is the same company. They created a local host, and then when that was blocked, then they actually created a WebRTC server in order to share data between the tracking pixels on the websites you visit and the app itself. Do I trust them? No. Neither should you. So the privacy tech industry is saying, I don't know. Despite these reassurances, the privacy world isn't exactly thrilled with the prospect of bringing data-hungry advertisements to the encrypted messaging app. Yeah. Max Sturm. So he says this is from NOYB's chairman. So this is None of Your Business chairman. I believe this is a UK group. I think, without freely giving consent, linking data and showing personalized advertising is clearly illegal. He's talking about the EU. Meta has already introduced pay or okay approach on Instagram and Facebook without the Irish Data Protection Authority or the EU Commission taking the effective action against it. We suspect that Meta will do the same with WhatsApp. So there you go. Ads are rolling out to WhatsApp. Are your conversations protected? I don't know. And onto our good news here. Denmark is set to replace Microsoft Office with open source alternatives. So this is kind of rolling out across the EU. Now, I'd heard that EU is also going to be working with Matrix. I could not find an article to confirm that entirely. But there is a giant push in the EU to have data sovereignty rather than relying on the big tech companies, which have a propensity to spy on us and things like that. Then what we're going to see here is they're going to adopt the open source solutions, which are a whole lot better with data management. And many of these resources, of course, can be locally hosted as well, meaning that you are safe. This is why I personally use these same systems. I use LibreOffice. I use Nextcloud. I use these particular services. All right, so so big tech has been tightening up its grip on public institutions, quietly slotting themselves into critical infrastructure that powers the daily running of governments. So it's becoming impossible for governments to function without these big techs. Between that, the schools, Google's like, oh, we'll be glad to give your kids free email addresses for all their education needs. That's great. Give us all your information. And of course, the school district doesn't care about any of this privacy stuff. So you enroll your child, they go ahead and give Google your child's first name, middle name, last name, birth date, address, and everything else that Google has no earthly business needing. Okay. Google does not need that information in order to provide me any form of service. And you are a moron if you think they are not collecting that data and using it in any other way. That is just not happening, folks. Google is a data-powered company. Whether they're using that data right now or whether they're going to be using that data in 15 to 20 years from now, they are still collecting such data. They have paid up fines for it to not have to go through trials, which means discovery. Okay, that's all you need to know. We'll pay money. We're guilty, fine, but we do not acknowledge you're doing anything wrong. We're just going to settle the case with you right now. We don't want to go through discovery. We don't want anybody looking around our servers at what type of K through 12 data is on there. And that's the same thing that's going on. So many nations, particularly the EU, are turning to the privacy-honoring, free and open source world. So their allergy to privacy and bowing to their overlords, in other words, the country they're based in, has long been a thing of concern. There have been numerous cases where surveillance laws forced companies to hand over user data without consulting or even notifying the governments of those affected. So obviously what they're saying here is, Microsoft is beholden to the United States government, not the government that they are helping run the infrastructure. And if the United States government wants information from Microsoft, they don't really have a choice. So what's going on here is Denmark is going to be moving away from Microsoft services and replacing it with replacing Office 365 with LibreOffice. They will also be replacing Windows with Linux. Half of the staff will be switched to Linux and LibreOffice by the summer between June and August, and a full adoption in the autumn between September and November. Move is said to be driven primarily by Denmark's goal to strengthen data sovereignty, ensuring control over critical government data and systems remains within the nation borders. See, people are starting to wake up a little bit. People are realizing we might actually have something to hide. Speaking of the move on LinkedIn, sharing it all on a Microsoft property, I see. But the minister nevertheless says, it's not about isolation or digital nationalism. We should not turn our backs completely on global technology companies. Many of them provide solutions that we benefit from. This applies to both today and in the future. But we must never make ourselves so dependent on so few that we can no longer act freely. Too much public digital infrastructure is currently tied up with very few foreign suppliers. This makes us vulnerable also financially. That's true. In fact, we're going to be... Did we include it? Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Did I forget an article? Oh, no. That's our feature article, folks. That's our feature article. Here it is. This is a potential concern. Now, admittedly, as Tech Radar also says, this guy did something wrong. He's like, the way they tried to do the backups was not right. That being said, look at this case. Holy moly. Windows 11 user has 30 years of irreplaceable photos and work locked away in OneDrive, and all they're getting from Microsoft is autoresponders trying to get their account back. Yikes. So, this is a tale on Reddit. Cautionary tale shared on Reddit tells the story of a Windows PC owner who used OneDrive to store 30 years worth of their data and lost the whole lot when their Microsoft account was locked with no apparent way to regain access. Now, the person was moving data. They didn't completely store it on one cloud. They were moving data from a bunch of old drives to a new drive. Now, the question is, why can't they pull the data off the old drives again? I don't know. Maybe it's like an SSD. I had an SSD going bad. I plugged it in, pulled all the data off of it, and the next time I plugged it in, it was completely dead. Maybe it was a circumstance like that. But 30 years data, I'm guessing this was old IDE drives or something. So I don't know why, and people are saying that in the comments of this article. Did he completely destroy the drives after moving everything to one cloud transitionally or not? But what his plan was is to take all of this data, migrate them into the OneDrive account, and then when it was all in the OneDrive account, then he was going to be migrating it back down into a different backup drive. So it didn't sound like they were doing a good backup strategy. That's true, but look at what happened in the middle. So you had 3 decades of irreplaceable photos and work, which was transferred to OneDrive as a temporary storage facility. The idea for the Redditor was that once they needed to move that huge collection from multiple old drives where they were stored to a large new drive, and OneDrive was selected as the midpoint in that data migration journey. So they migrate everything over, and then Microsoft's like, they must have been like, hey, something here is not right. Lock your account. And then you can't get back into somebody. The Redditor can't get any joy whatsoever from Microsoft in terms of trying to resolve the problem. Microsoft suspended my account without warning, reason, or any legitimate recourse. I've submitted the compliance form 18 times. Each time I get an automated response that leads nowhere. No human contact, no actual help, just canned emails and radio silence. They continue, this feels not only unethical, but potentially illegal, especially in light of consumer protection laws. You can't just hold somebody's entire digital life hostage with no due process, no warning, and no accountability. And I think this gets into the issue. If Microsoft, and they address it a little bit down later, I'll jump ahead myself a little bit here. If Microsoft wants to force everybody to have Windows accounts, which they do, I'm sorry, Microsoft, you need to have employees, actual human beings available to work through these types of issues. You can't be locking people out of their stuff and then forcing them to go into just your canned, it feels like a scammer this way. Canned responses and automated systems. I'm sorry, if you cannot support all of these accounts you're hoisting on the world with human support agents, maybe you shouldn't be hoisting your accounts on the whole world. Just a thought. See, a person shouldn't have to be a journalist or a high-power government official or somebody with massive amounts of authority or massive amounts of influence in order to get your attention. Needless to say, once this goes live, Microsoft will probably respond, oh, well, I'm sorry, we'll figure it all out. We'll do that. Because you had to cause this giant crap storm on the internet in order for you to get somebody involved. Although they're so big right now, I'm not sure they'll get involved even with this. Like, well, they'll release some statement in 6 weeks. There was illegal content, so pursuant to our terms of service, that you had to be forced to have a Windows computer, by the way. Pursuant to our terms of service, the account was locked. There's nothing we can do. That's the response. All right. So getting further in, this paragraph here I didn't cover there. This is like, hey, don't transfer data like this. True. Okay. In fact, I just did massive backups on my whole system, and I wanted to upgrade to a new system. So I created the new operating system, migrated the data from the old one, and the old backup, which basically contains old archive data on a spinning Rust hard drive that's still in decent shape. I just threw that thing back in my storage unit now too. So now I have a bunch of old backup data in multiple other places now too. So there you go. So why did this happen? First, there's the fact that Microsoft account was simply locked with no notification or message provided as to why. OneDrive user can only guess. So was there some copyrighted or illegal thing in there? Possible. I mean, who knows? 30 years of data. We all do stupid things when we're 18. There might have been something stupid on there. Who knows? But clarity would be a thing. Secondly, this having happened, the most worrying part here is that Reddit's description of how they feel like they're banging their head against a brick wall trying to talk to Microsoft support staff to resolve this. And there is no support staff. There is none. They have none. But they should be forced to. If they're going to force everybody to have a Microsoft account just to turn on a Windows computer that you buy at a store, I think you need to have the support staff to handle that. And I'm sorry, Microsoft, I don't think it should all be third world country people being paid $10 a day. No, you want to sit here and maximize your profits by forcing these accounts on everybody. You had better damn well support those accounts. And you're not. So for all we know, it could have been a bug that caused this. Yeah. How many times have bugs caused that? We're seeing a whole lot of that. I didn't include it in anything here, but AI on Instagram and I think a couple other platforms were mass flagging stuff, and it looks like it's a bug. But nobody can get anybody to do anything about it. So, creators are having their entire livelihood shut down by an AI bot that's most likely a bug. But if nobody at Microsoft is listening, probably nobody's investigating. Microsoft is not high on their priority of fixing bugs. Go on. So the incident occurred at a time when Microsoft is pushing its account services on Windows 11 users, as you can't install the OS without one, which could result in the loss of key data. By the way, if your decryption key for your hard drive that Microsoft encrypted for you is on your Microsoft account, you can't get that if they log you out of your account. Switch to Linux, folks. Switch to Linux. So, very interesting article here. And now we're going to wrap up with just a couple of Sillyville articles, and these get interesting, folks. Of course, we covered that Waymo taxis were called into the LA riots just to be lit on fire. Google did actually respond. It suspended service into there. I didn't hear them make a statement one way or the other. But in response to all of these exploding cars downtown LA, they're kind of like, we just don't want much to do with the No Kings protests. So they limited services during the No Kings protests. They limited services in San Francisco, Austin, Atlanta, Phoenix. Probably, hey, there's one of those things nearby. Let's just not send Waymo cars there near that spot. That's kind of what they did. All right. Probably a good plan there, Google. I don't know. Kia becomes the latest car giant to offer in-car Netflix. That's right. Now, these are for the, I don't think it's all Kias. I got the impression reading the article it was for the EVs. I don't know, though. They're probably putting Netflix in all of the cars now. Of course, what is their whole infotainment system based on? WebOS! Isn't that wonderful, folks? They're doing psychological profiling us as we watch Netflix in our cars. Idiocracy, here we come! All right, guys. On to our last one. Oh, this is pure gold. Literally. The Trump phone, folks. The Trump phone is here. Yes. Proudly made in America smartphone, which is $500. It is not yet manufactured. Down payment of $100, $500 total. And of course, it is gold in color. Probably not lined in pure gold. Just an FYI. Just gold in color. And it is a phone which you can use with any prepaid service or pretty much anywhere. It's an official phone. Now the question is information about it because up here color, of course, gold, memory. Here's your internal storage. Here's your screen is OLED. That's not bad. Security in-screen fingerprinter and an AI face unlock. Trump's looking at you, folks. We have the main cameras of 50. We have a 2 megapixel depth sensor, 2 megapixel macro lens. The front camera is 16 megapixel, 5,000 milliamp battery with fast charging. So that's decent there. We have USB-C ports and we have a headphone jack. Android 15. Okay, so there are a few questions here. One of the questions is we don't know exactly what the processor is, if they're trying to be all made in America. There is a processing plant in Phoenix, which is now making some chips, although it's unknown if there's anybody manufacturing screens in America. So it does appear some of the stuff might need to be imported, at least for the time being. Of course, this is also tied to their own plan. So they now have they have their own data plan here as well. It costs $47.45 per month. This is all real, folks. Best we can tell. It is unlimited talk, unlimited text, unlimited data, 20 gigabytes at high speed. Nationwide coverage on all U.S. networks, international calling to 100 details. They have device protection plans. They have roadside assistance provided by Drive America. They have telehealth and pharmacy benefits built into the plan as well. So you can also bring your other phones in the Trump Mobile plan if you really want to. I'm not sure I'd want to. I did read through their privacy policy, and I can say their privacy policy is not particularly good. Obviously, there's the information. The part that I tend to steer away from is they may collect information from third parties. So we may obtain personal information from third parties for marketing or business purposes. If we obtain personal information for third parties for any of these, we will require third parties from whom we may obtain such information represent to us that they have acquired the information in compliance with all laws. Okay. We may collect information from publicly available resources. So you provide information and they will collect a bunch of other stuff. And obviously some information they would need to create the account, that's for sure. But it does appear that they are using a lot of the same tracking technologies as everyone else is. They're doing a lot of advertising as everyone else does. So this is not a company that I would do business with personally because there's just too much data collection involved. There's too much of that. Now, Tech Radar, though, got an acute case of TDS when this dropped. They just went all out and tried to find every possible negative, even if it wasn't really a negative. We've gone so full circle. This is the one redeeming factor of this phone is it has a headphone jack. And it even has a headphone jack. Why would you possibly have a headphone jack in this day and age? Okay, Tech Radar, calm down. It's okay. It's a headphone jack. If you don't like it, just don't use it, okay? But for those of us that do not want all this Bluetooth nonsense always on, a headphone jack is one of the things I look for in my phones. Believe it or not. And heck, my current phone right now, headphone jack. Love it. Gotta love it. All right, so here's their negatives. Features from the past. Even most modern smartphones have discarded the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. This is bringing it back to a 5G phone. Oh, the humanity of it all. Okay, it can be upgraded. They're listing this as a negative. It can be upgraded. Storage is not bad. It ships with a memory card. That's unusual and somewhat old school. Might even mean that the back pops off and that big battery could pop out. It might even mean a memory slot in the chases. Oh my God. It has a mystery processor. This is their valid point. Okay, this is the one point they got valid. All right, it's a mystery processor. Yeah, we don't know anything about who the processor is yet. So $500 for a phone with a processor. We don't know what it is yet. It'll only have Android 15. I'm sorry, but the only phones that have Android 16 right now is a Pixel. Samsung does. Your precious Samsung doesn't have Android 16 yet. It will have it very soon. And who knows, in September, maybe this will actually support Android 16. We don't know for sure. Now, if it is a fly-by-night phone that's not going to get any back support, maybe it won't get Android 16. That's a possibility. I don't know. It doesn't have much AI. They're listing this as a negative. In the era of AI everything, releasing a new smartphone, or really any consumer electronic that does not have it, at the center of tone-deaf marketing. Tech Radar, go seek mental help. You have TDS, a very bad case of it. Oh my God, this phone is tone deaf marketing. It doesn't have AI. Dude, they're talking me into buying this phone. And I'll tell you, if I can get Lineage on the Trump phone, oh yeah. Oh yeah, I might just do it. I might. Of course, we don't know the processor. It does have a low resolution macro camera. That is true. The 2 megapixel macro camera is low resolution. Now, I don't know the specs of what different cameras are, so I don't know if this is good or bad. It has a big battery. This is something of an anomaly and should be good news, assuming it's a high quality one and not prone to rapid drain or issues that would cause swelling. It has a big battery, and you're listening as a downside because it might be low quality. The uncertain design. Like, they're literally criticizing in here the spacing of the 3 cameras in the back. Which, by the way, this looks remarkably like many Android phones. They're basically saying this spacing is so big on the cameras. Why? Oh my God, the humanity of it all. Of course, like, there's no mention of President Donald Trump. Hey, moron at the Tech Radar. The reason is Donald Trump is the president. As you said, President Donald Trump. As the president, he does not have anything to do with his business. He had to divest himself in the business to run the country. Shocking, I know. My Lord. But still. A Trump phone. Tech Radar might interest me in buying the phone. I'm not sure. I would not buy. I definitely would not buy the Trump mobile plan. But the phone, Tech Radar might have just talked me into it. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you going to be buying this? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.